The world outside screams for your attention. But here, in the quiet, the only sound that truly matters is the soft, rhythmic scrape of wood against steel. A sound, an emotion, that for centuries held not just sustenance, but also a profound, meditative peace, offering an escape that many of us crave today. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're stepping far away from the noise into the tranquil, often forgotten craft of medieval barrel scraping. And I guarantee by the end of this journey, you'll discover a deep, unexpected reverence for the beauty found in the most unassuming of tasks, and perhaps even a new way to find your own quiet. If you're as drawn to uncovering these calming, ancient ways of life as I am, do me a favor and gently tap that subscribe button now, so you don't miss our next meditative escape. So dim the lights, settle in, and let's journey into the rhythmic heart of a cooper's workshop. The air outside, even in the bustling medieval village, often carried the sharp tang of wood smoke and the distant calls of vendors. But here, just beyond a heavy planked door, stood a different world entirely. A world where time itself seemed to slow, where every breath you took filled your lungs with the deep, resonant scent of seasoned timber and damp earth. This was the cooper's workshop. Stepping inside felt like entering a living, breathing entity. The light, for one, was unlike anything outside. It didn't stream in brightly, but rather filtered through small, grimy panes set high in the stone walls, fractured and softened by centuries of accumulated dust. What direct sunlight did manage to penetrate cut through the air like golden blades, illuminating the countless motes of sawdust that danced and swirled in a perpetual silent ballet. Elsewhere, the corners of the room remained cloaked in deep shadow, hinting at hidden recesses and forgotten tools, adding a sense of mystery to the industrious space. The floor beneath your feet was not smooth flagstone, but packed earth, worn uneven by the countless footsteps of generations. It offered a yielding, comforting surface, absorbing sound and contributing to the hushed sanctity of the place. Overhead, rough-hewn beams, blackened with age, supported a low, heavy ceiling, creating a sense of being sheltered, tucked away from the wider world. It was a space built for purpose, for enduring labor, yet it possessed a unique, almost organic beauty. The primary illumination, beyond the grudging daylight, often came from a hearth in one corner. A low, steady fire crackled there, its flames casting dancing shadows that played across the walls and tools. The warmth it offered was a welcome counterpoint to the persistent damp chill that seemed to cling to the ancient stone, especially during the long, dark months. It wasn't just for warmth, though. Sometimes a particularly stubborn piece of wood might be gently heated by the embers, encouraged to bend to the cooper's will. And then there was the smell. Oh, the smell. It was a symphony of fragrances, each layer telling its own story. The predominant note was, of course, wood. The clean, resinous scent of freshly split oak, the sweeter aroma of chestnut, the earthy musk of ash. But beneath that, there were subtler notes. The faint, metallic tang of iron tools, polished and worn by countless hands. The acrid hint of wood smoke. Perhaps even the ghosts of spilled ale or wine, absorbed into the very fabric of the building from barrels long finished and delivered. It was a scent that spoke of honest labor, of natural materials, and of the profound connection between man and the earth's bounty. The sounds of the workshop were equally distinctive. No clamor, no frantic haste. Instead, a deep, resonant quiet, punctuated by the deliberate rhythmic sounds of craft. The gentle thud of a mallet against a wooden wedge. The soft shush of a plane gliding across a stave. The occasional, almost musical clink of metal against metal as a tool was selected or sharpened. These were not disruptive noises, but rather a percussive backdrop, a steady, soothing rhythm that became part of the very air you breathed. It was the sound of focus, of precision, of centuries of accumulated wisdom being brought to bear on simple materials. At the heart of this sanctuary stood the cooper. Not a young man, typically, but one whose hands told tales of long years spent in this very posture. His back might be slightly stooped, his shoulders broad and powerful, evidence of the physical demands of his trade. His apron, often made of thick leather or sturdy canvas, be stained and scored, a testament to countless hours of protecting him from shavings and splinters. His face, etched with lines of concentration, would often be dusted with fine wood particles. Like a baker with flour, a proud badge of his profession. His movements were a study in efficiency and economy. There was no wasted motion, no flourish. Each swing of an axe, each push of a plane, was precise, deliberate, born of an intimate understanding of the wood he worked. He moved with a quiet grace, his body attuned to the rhythm of his tools and the resistance of the material. You might notice the way his fingers, thick and strong, would instinctively test the grain of a stave, feeling for imperfections. For the hidden weaknesses or strengths within the timber, look around the workshop, and you would see the tools, each with its own story, its own specific purpose. They hung neatly on pegs along the walls, their polished steel gleaming softly in the dim light, or rested on a sturdy workbench that bore the scars of generations of craftsmanship. These weren't mere implements, they were extensions of the cooper's will. Honed and cared for, with the same dedication he applied to the barrels themselves. There was the adze. For instance, a heavy, almost prehistoric-looking tool with a curved blade set at right angles to the handle. This was for the initial brutal shaping, for stripping bark and roughing out the contours of a stave from a raw log. Its strikes were powerful, leaving deep, satisfying gouges in the wood, transforming an unwieldy piece of timber into something vaguely recognizable. Then, for finer shaping, you'd see the draw knife. With its two handles and sharp blade, it was pulled towards the cooper, shaving off long curling ribbons of wood, slowly revealing the true shape beneath. And of course, the spoke shave, a smaller, more refined version, perfect for delicate curves and smoothing edges, preparing the wood for the even finer work to come. Planes of various sizes and shapes lay ready, jointer planes for perfectly straight edges, compass planes for internal curves, and sun planes for external ones. Each was a marvel of simple engineering, designed to achieve a specific effect, to bring the wood closer to its ideal form. The cooper's axe, a tool distinct from a felling axe, possessed a specially shaped head, ideal for splitting billets from larger logs and for more precise, controlled roughing out of the stave's initial curve. Light sources beyond the hearth might include a cresset lamp, a small iron basket holding a burning wick, or simple tallow candles, their soft flickering glow adding to the workshop's timeless atmosphere. In Centralto, much of the work was the shaving horse, a unique workbench where the cooper could sit and hold a piece of wood firmly in place with a foot-operated clamp, leaving both hands free to wield a draw knife or spoke shave with precisional power. It was an ergonomic masterpiece, allowing for hours of focused work with minimal fatigue.
Ow.
The materials themselves were as vital as the tools. The wood, not just any wood but specific species, carefully chosen and aged. Oak, in particular, was prized for its strength, its natural resistance to rot, and its subtle flavor, imparting qualities that were so crucial for wine, ale, and spirits. Chestnut was another favorite, particularly for its lighter weight and ease of working, while ash might be used for hoops, where flexibility was paramount. This wood didn't arrive at the workshop as perfectly milled planks. No, it often came as raw logs, or in large, roughly split sections, still bearing the marks of thefferist, the cooper's first task, or one of the earliest, was to understand each piece of timber, to read its grain, to see the barrel waiting within. This involved the arduous, yet satisfying, process of splitting the logs into smaller billets, a task done not with a saw, but with wedges and mallets, following the natural lines of the wood. This riving, as it was called, was crucial, as it preserved the wood's inherent strength. Unlike sawing which cut across the grain and weakened the staves, imagine the thwack of the cooper's mallet against a heavy wedge, the wood groaning, then slowly, almost reluctantly, yielding along its natural cleavage lines. Fresh, clean scent of wood fiber would burst forth with each successful split. These billets, still rough and irregular, would then begin their transformation into staves. With his cooper's axe, or a broad adze, the cooper would meticulously begin to shape these raw pieces, removing excess material, slowly coaxing out the characteristic curve of a barrel stave. This was not a rapid process. It was a patient, iterative dance between man and material. Each blow of the axe, each pull of the draw knife was designed not just to remove wood, but to understand it, to guide it. The cooper's eye, trained over years, could discern the subtle nuances in the grain, anticipate how the wood would respond, and adjust his technique accordingly. He was, in essence, a sculptor, revealing the hidden form within the unyielding timber. Piles of these roughly shaped staves would accumulate in the workshop. Leaning against walls or stacked in neat, airy bundles, they wouldn't be ready for immediate assembly. Instead, they needed to season further, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, exposed to the elements outside, or carefully stored within the workshop, allowing the wood to dry slowly and evenly, to shed its excess moisture and settle into its final, stable form. This seasoning process was vital, preventing the wood from shrinking or warping later, which could compromise the integrity of the finished barrel. The workshop itself, therefore, was not just a place of work, but a silent partner in the seasoning process. It's the ambient humidity, the temperature fluctuations, even the dust motes, dancing in the light, all contributed to the slow, transformative journey of the wood. It was a testament to the understanding that patience was not just a virtue, but a fundamental requirement of the craft. As you observed the cooper at work, you would notice the rhythm, the almost hypnotic cadence of his labor. His breathing was steady, his gazoon wavering as he focused on the task at hand. There was no hurriedness, no sense of rushing to meet a deadline. The work demanded respect, and the cooper gave it freely, understanding that any attempt to force the wood would only lead to a flawed outcome. It was a philosophy that extended beyond the timber, seeping into the very atmosphere of the workshop, creating an oasis of calm and deliberate action. In this space, surrounded by the raw beauty of wood and the honed precision aft tools, the cooper was more than just a craftsman. He was a custodian of knowledge, a keeper of ancient techniques. His workshop was a living archive, a place where the past was not just remembered, but actively, physically recreated with every strike, every shave, every carefully chosen piece of wood. It was here, in the quiet heart of this workshop, that the journey of a barrel truly began. A journey of transformation from forest to vessel, guided by the skillful hands and patient spirit of the cooper. And it was here that the stage was set for the meticulous art of shaping and smoothing, a process that would require an even deeper level of finesse and an almost meditative focus. As the journey of the barrel truly began in that quiet heart of the workshop, guided by the skillful hands and patient spirit of the cooper, we stand now at a fascinating juncture. We've seen the raw material, the dedication to preparation, and the calm environment fostering creation. But what exactly is being created? What are the individual components that come together to form this marvel of medieval engineering, this everyday yet extraordinary vessel? To truly appreciate the cooper's craft, to understand slow, deliberate scraping and smoothing that lies ahead, we must first break down the barrel into its constituent parts. It is far more than just a simple container. A medieval barrel is a testament to ingenuity, a symphony of natural materials meticulously lished and joined, designed to hold, protect, and transport precious goods across vast distances and through changing climates. Every curve, every joint, every piece of wood serves a precise, vital purpose, working in harmony to create a structure of surprising strength and remarkable integrity. Let us begin with the heart of the barrel, its very essence, the staves. These are the individual wooden planks, each carefully selected and shaped, that form the body of the barrel. Imagine them as therabs of a living creature, each perfectly contoured to fit its neighbor, creating a continuous, robust skin. The medieval world, the choice of wood was paramount, dictating not only the barrel's durability, but also its suitability for specific cantons. Liquids, especially wine, beer, and spirits, oak was king. Its dense grain and natural impermeability made it ideal, and its subtle compounds could even impart desirable flavors to aging beverages. But other woods found their purpose too, chestnut for its strength and resistance to rot, ash for its flexibility, or even pine for dry goods where a watertight seal was less critical. The journey of each stave began not with a violent saw cut across the grain, but often with the careful process of cleaving. Imagine a cooper, axe in hand, splitting a log along its natural grain lines rather than cutting against them. This method, often called quarter sawing in more refined forms, was painstaking but crucial. By following the wood's innate structure, the resulting stave retained its maximum strength, minimized its tendency to warp, and, perhaps most importantly, created a surface less prone to weeping or leaking. The grain itself, running uninterrupted from one end of the stave to the other, became a natural barrier, a microscopic labyrinth that liquids struggled to penetrate. But these staves were not simply flat planks. Here lies one of the profound secrets of barrel construction. Each stave possesses a unique and subtle curvature, not just along its length, but also across its width. This double curve, known as bilge and pitch, is what gives a barrel its distinctive, bulging shape and its incredible strength. The cooper's skill lay in recognizing the inherent tendencies of the wood and coaxing it into this precise form. Sometimes this shaping involved careful heating over a fire, allowing the wood's fibers to become more pliable, followed by bending with clamps and ropes. In other instances, steaming the wood achieved a similar effect, softening it just enough to be gently persuaded into the desired arc. This was not a forceful imposition, but a respectful partnership with the material, encouraging it to adopt a new, stable form. The precise dimensions and angles of each stave were also meticulously calculated. Each one would be wider in the middle, tapering slightly towards the ends. This specific geometry, when all the staves were brought together, naturally created the barrel's characteristic bulge known as the bilge, its widest point. The edges of each stave were also not cut straight but were beveled, angled ever so slightly. When pressed together, these beveled edges formed a tight, almost seamless joint, a crucial element in achieving a watertight vessel without the aid of modern sealants or glues. It was an exercise in pure geometry, a testament to empirical knowledge passed down through generations. Moving beyond the staves themselves, we encounter the magnificent curvature they collectively form, the bilge. This is the very heart of the barrel's iconic shape. The widest point of its circumference, usually located roughly in the middle, the bilge is not merely an aesthetic choice. It's a stroke of genius in functional design, offering a multitude of practical advantages. For one, it allows the barrel to be easily rolled. Imagine trying to roll a perfectly cylindrical drum across uneven medieval terrain. It would be a frustrating, back-breaking endeavor. But the bilge, with its gently swelling curve, allows the barrel to pivot and turn with relative ease, making it far more maneuverable, even for a single person. This was invaluable for transport. Whether moving barrels from a cellar to a cart or from a ship's hold to the quay. Bay-in maneuverability, the bilge also contributes significantly to the barrel's overall strength. The curved surface distributes pressure more evenly than a flat wall, making it incredibly resilient against external impacts and the internal hydrostatic pressure of the liquid it contains. It also provides a natural point of stability when the barrel is laid on its side, preventing it from rolling away unchecked. Designed to be easily sealed with a wooden bung or stopper, often wrapped in a piece of cloth or made of a slightly softer wood to ensure a perfectly airtight fit. At either end of this magnificent structure, we find thebril heads. These are the flat, circular pieces of wood that seal the top and bottom of the vessel. Unlike the staves, which are curved, the heads are typically flat, though they might have a slight doming for added strength. Often a single piece of wood large enough for a barrel head was difficult to come by. So coopers would skillfully join several smaller planks together using dowels or simple tongue-and-groove joints, ensuring the resulting circular head was as strong and watertight as possible. The choice of wood for the heads was also critical. Usually a strong, knot-free timber, again, often oak, that would not easily split or warp. The connection between the staves and the heads is another masterclass in medieval carpentry. Along the inside edge of the staves, near their ends, the cooper would cut a precise, shallow groove. This groove, known as the crows, or chime groove, was carefully fashioned to perfectly receive the beveled edge of the barrel head. The process of inserting the head was itself a delicate operation. The cooper would temporarily loosen the hoops at one end, allowing the staves to flex outwards just enough. The head would then be carefully maneuved into the crows, its beveled edge fitting snugly into the groove. As the hoops were hammered back into place, tightening the staves, the head was firmly locked. creating an incredibly secure and watertight seal. To further ensure its seal, it was common practice to place a thin layer of natural material, such as rush, flag, or even a paste of flour and water, within the crows before inserting the head. This simple yet effective addition filled any minute imperfections and provided an extra layer of protection against leaks. No discussion of a barrel's anatomy would be complete without acknowledging its most visible and arguably most crucial structural component: the hoops. These encircling bands, whether made of metal or wood, are the true heroes that bind the staves together, imparting immense compressive strength to the entire structure. In medieval times, while iron hoops were known and highly prized, they were also expensive and often reserved for barrels intended for long-distance transport or particularly valuable contents. Far more common, especially for everyday use and for smaller barrels, were hoops made of sturdy, flexible wood. Hazel, willow, ash, or even split saplings were carefully selected, peeled, and then bent into rings. The cooper's workshop would often have a stock of these natural hoops, drying and curing, ready to embrace the staves. The application of the hoops was a skill unto itself. They were driven onto the barrel body, typically starting with temporary setting up hoops that held the staves loosely in place while the cooper assembled the full form. Once the staves were correctly aligned and the heads inserted, the permanent hoops were applied. These hoops were carefully sized to be slightly smaller than the part of the barrel they were intended to embrace. Using a special tool called a hoop driver, often paired with a heavy cooper's hammer, the cooper would meticulously tap and drive each hoop down the barrel from the wider bilge towards the narrower ends. This action created incredible tension, forcing the beveled edges of the staves tightly together and pressing the heads firmly into their crow's grooves. The number and placement of the hoops were carefully considered. More hoops, strategically positioned near the ends and at the bilge, provided maximum reinforcement where it was needed most. This binding force transformed a collection of individual staves into a single, cohesive, and remarkably resilient vessel. Perhaps the most astonishing aspect of the barrel's anatomy, yet often the least visible, lies in its joints. The precision with which each stave met its neighbor was not just about aesthetics. It was the foundation of the barrel's watertight integrity. As we discussed, the edges of the staves were precisely beveled. When these beveled edges were forced together by the compressive strength of the hoops, they created a natural interlocking seal. This was enhanced by the inherent properties of the wood itself. Once liquid was introduced into the barrel, the wood would absorb a small amount of moisture and swell slightly. This natural expansion further tightened the joints, making the barrel even more watertight. It was a brilliant, self-sealing mechanism, relying entirely on the interaction of expertly shaped natural materials. There were no glues, no caulking compounds, just wood, perfectly fitted and held under tension. This understanding of wood's hygroscopic properties was a deep, intuitive knowledge, secret, held within the cooper's hands and mind. Finally, let us consider the chime. This term refers to the projecting edge of the staves that extends slightly beyond the face of the barrel head. It's a seemingly minor detail, but again, one with significant practical purpose. The chime acts as a protective buffer, guarding the vulnerable barrel head from impact when the barrel is rolled, stacked, or jostled during transport. It also provides a convenient grip for handling. In essence, it's a built-in shock absorber, a subtle yet effective design element that speaks to the Cooper's comprehensive understanding of how their creations would be used and abused in the demanding world of medieval commerce. To the securely fitted heads and the binding embrace of the hoops, every component of a medieval barrel was a testament to thoughtful design and meticulous craftsmanship. It was a harmony of function and form, a sophisticated piece of engineering crafted from the simplest of materials, and meditative recess of scraping and smoothing. From the individually shaped staves, forming the iconic bilge, to the securely fitted heads and the binding embrace of the hoops, every component of a medieval barrel was a testament to thoughtful design and meticulous craftsmanship. What was a harmony of function and form, a sophisticated piece of engineering crafted from the simplest of materials. Understanding this intricate anatomy now allows us to truly appreciate the painstaking genesis of the barrel. beginning with its very foundation, the stave. The stave, in essence, is the heart and soul of the barrel. Without expertly crafted staves, there is no vessel. It is in the creation of these individual wooden planks that the cooper's true artistry, their deep understanding of material and form, becomes most evident. The journey of a stave begins long before it ever reaches the cooper's workshop. It starts in the forest, with the careful selection of the right tree. Not just any tree would do. The choice of wood was paramount, dictating the barrel's strength, durability, and even its interaction with its contents. For centuries, oak was the preferred timber for barrels intended to hold liquids like wine, ale, and spirits. But oak was not the only wood in use. Chestnut, with its straight grain and resistance to rot, was often employed for barrels holding less sensitive liquids or for dry goods. While softer woods like pine or fir might be used for cheaper, temporary containers or those destined for less demanding contents, though their porous nature made them less suitable for long-term liquid storage. The cooper's knowledge extended to understanding which wood was best suited for a particular purpose, a wisdom passed down through generations. Once the species was chosen, the individual tree itself had to meet stringent criteria. A cooper looked for straight, clear trunks, free from large knots, excessive branching, or any signs of disease or rot. Knots, in particular, were anathema to barrel making. They represented disruptions in the wood grain, points of weakness where leaks could form and where the wood would split unpredictably. The ideal tree was mature, ensuring dense, strong wood, but not so old as to be hollow or brittle. Felling these magnificent trees was a laborious process, often performed in late autumn or winter when the sap was down, which reduced the wood's moisture content and minimized the risk of insect infestation. Once felled, the log was then transported to a suitable location for processing. And here lies a critical distinction in the art of thestov. The wood was split, not sawn. This is a crucial detail that often goes overlooked, but fundamentally impacts the quality of the barrel. The sawing wood cuts across the natural grain, severing the long, continuous fibers. While efficient for flat planks, this creates microscopic channels that can wick liquid and make the wood more prone to splitting along unexpected lines. Splitting, or riving, on the other hand, follows the natural growth rings and grain of the wood. Using wedges and mallets, the cooper or their assistants would carefully cleave the log along its natural lines of cleavage. This process, while seemingly rough, respects the wood's inherent structure, keeping the fibers intact and running continuously from end to end of the resulting stave. This preserved cellular integrity is what made a medieval barrel so remarkably watertight. The unbroken wood fibers acted as tiny natural conduits, sealing themselves against liquid ingress far more effectively than sawn wood ever could. The rough-hewn pieces, known as billets or bolts, were then ready for the crucial process of seasoning. Seasoning was not merely drying. It was a slow, deliberate transformation of the wood, preparing it for its ultimate purpose. The split billets would be stacked outdoors, often in covered sheds or open-sided structures, exposed to the elements but protected from direct rain and scorching sun. Air needed to circulate freely around each piece. This natural drying process could take anywhere from 1 to 3 years, sometimes even longer for very large staves. During this time, the vast majority of the wood's moisture content would slowly evaporate. This gradual drying prevented the wood from checking, warping, or splitting prematurely. But seasoning did more than just remove water. It also allowed certain chemical changes to occur within the wood. Tannins and other compounds, particularly in oak, would slowly break down and polymerize. This process mellowed the wood's flavor profile, making it more desirable for aging beverages. It also stabilized the wood, making it less prone to dramatic swelling and shrinking. Once it was incorporated into a barrel, properly seasoned wood was less likely to leak, less likely to impart those green flavors, and far easier for the cooper to work with. It was an investment of time, patience, and space, but one that was absolutely essential for creating a durable, high-quality medieval barrel. To rush this stage was to compromise the entire vessel from the outset. With the carefully selected and perfectly seasoned billets now in the workshop, the true artistry of the cooper began to manifest. Each billet, though split along its grain, was still a rough, irregular piece of timber. The challenge was to transform these raw chunks into identical, perfectly curved staves that would, when assembled, form a symmetrical, watertight cylinder, or bilge. This initial shaping required a keen eye, immense physical strength, and an intuitive understanding of how the wood would behave under the tools. The cooper would take a billet and carefully examine it. It would look for the best orientation, where the grain was straightest and clearest, minimizing waste and maximizing the potential of wood, the piece of chalk or charcoal. They would mark out the approximate shape of the stave, a wide, curved middle tapering to narrower ends. This curve, the bilge, was not simply aesthetic. It was fundamental to the barrel's strength and stability. The wider midsection allowed for greater capacity, while the narrower ends provided points of contact for stacking and rolling, making the barrel easier to handle and less prone to damage. The primary tools for this rough shaping were the broadaxe and the adze. The broadaxe, with its wide, heavy head and often a single bevel, was used for the initial, aggressive removal of material. The cooper would stand the billet on end or lay it across a sturdy trestle, and with powerful, precise swings, begin to hew away the excess wood, working from the marked lines towards the desired curve. This was a physically demanding task, requiring not just strength, but also rhythm and control. A misplaced stroke could ruin a billet, or worse, cause injury. Following the broadaxe, the adze came into play. The adze is a fascinating tool, essentially an axe head mounted perpendicular to the handle. Its curved blade allowed the cooper to carve out the concave inner surface of the stave with remarkable precision. Holding the billet firmly, often wedged against a bench or a specialized cooper's horse, the cooper would swing the adze downwards and towards themselves, scooping out chips off wood with each stroke. The skill lay in controlling the depth and angle of the cut, ensuring a smooth, consistent curve along the entire length of the stave. This process was repetitive, meditative even, as the cooper worked their way along dozens, sometimes hundreds of staves for a single order of barrels. They were not just removing wood, they were revealing the hidden form within each piece, guided by experience and an internal blueprint of the perfect stave. The goal at this stage was not absolute perfection, but a close approximation of the final shape. The staves would still be thick and somewhat uneven, but the basic inner and outer curves would be established, and the ends would begin to show their characteristic taper. This roughing out was a critical step, preparing the staves for the even more precise work that would follow, where every fraction of an inch mattered in achieving the coveted watertight seal. The rhythm of the broadaxe and the whisper of the adze were constant sounds in the medieval cooperage, the soundtrack to the birth of the barrel. Once the staves had been roughed out with the axe and adze, they still held a raw, somewhat uneven character. The next staggin, the art of the stave, was to refine their shape, bringing them to the exact dimensions and subtle curves required for a perfect fit.
Ow.
This was where the cooper's precision tools and mastery of joinery truly shone. The goal was twofold: to create a smooth, consistent curvature on both the inner and outer surfaces, and most critically, to create perfectly angled and curved edges that would fit seamlessly against their neighbors. For smoothing the surfaces, various planes were employed. A long plane, similar to a modern jointer plane, but often much longer, would be used to create an even, consistent surface on both the convex outer face and the concave inner face of the stave. The cooper would run the plane along the length of the wood. This was a tactile process. The cooper's hands, guided by years of experience, would feel for any high spots or irregularities, adjusting their technique until the surface was uniform. However, the most critical and perhaps most challenging aspect of stave shaping was jointing, creating the precise bevel and curve on the edges of each stave. This was performed on a specialized workbench now, as a cooper's jointer or a jointer horse. This was essentially a long, sturdy bench with a heavy-duty plane fixed blade upwards, often at a slight angle. The cooper would straddle the bench or stand beside it, and with great strength and control, slide the stave across the fixed plane blade, shaving off slivers of wood from its edge. The geometry involved in this process is fascinating and a testament to medieval ingenuity. Each stave's edge had to be planed with a slight specific bevel or angle. This angle was not straight. It was subtly convex along its length. Think of it this way. If you were to lay a finished stave on a flat surface, its edges would not be parallel but would curve slightly outwards. When multiple staves, each with this precise edge curvature, were brought together, they would create a perfectly tight, continuous joint that naturally formed the barrel's iconic build shape. The edges of the staves are not straight lines. They're carefully calculated arcs that allow them to fit together to form a larger arc. The cooper had to consider several factors: the diameter of the barrel at its bilge, the diameter at its ends, and the number of staves that would make up the barrel. All these variables influence the precise angle and curvature of each stave's edge. It's a steep an angle, and the barrel would have gaps. It's a shallow, and the staves would not draw together tightly enough under the tension of the hoops. This was not a task for casual estimation. It required an expert eye, a deep understanding of geometry, and years of practice to achieve the necessary precision. The cooper would often test the fit of several staves together, sometimes chalking the edges to see where contact was made, looking for any minute gaps that would betray a future leak. The ability to make these complex, compound curves and angles consistently was the hallmark of a master cooper. The jointer horse allowed the cooper to exert significant downward pressure on the stave, while simultaneously guiding it across the blade. The plane itself would often be a massive, specialized tool, much larger and heavier than a typical woodworking plane, capable of taking fine, consistent shavings from the hard wood. The process was slow, methodical, and required immense concentration. Each pass would remove only a fraction of a millimeter, but over dozens of passes, the edge would gradually take on its perfect complex curve, a testament to the sharpness of the blade and the cooper's skill. The very best coopers could, by feel and eye alone, create staves that would snap together with an almost audible pop, forming a tight joint even before the hoops were applied. This was the ultimate proof of their skill, a testament to hundreds of hours spent at the jointer, honing their sensitivity, the wood, and their mastery of the tools, utterly useless for its primary purpose. Once the individual staves had been planed, curved, and jointed to perfection, this involved creating the chime and the crows. As discussed earlier, the chime is the slight projection of the stave beyond the barrel head, acting as a protective buffer. The process of chiming and crowsing typically occurred after the staves had been temporarily assembled into a loose barrel form, often held together by a few temporary hoops. This allowed the cooper to cut the groove accurately around the entire circumference. The tools for this operation were highly specialized. This was often done with a cooper's chiming knife, a broad, curved blade designed to shave off wood at an angle, or with specialized planes. The goal was to create a smooth, rounded edge that would protect the vulnerable end grain of the staves and provide a clean finish. The crows, however, was a far more intricate cut. It required a tool known as a crow's plane, or simply a crow's. The cooper would lean the partially assembled barrel on its side, resting on a stand or a trestle, and then carefully guide the crow's plane around the inner circumference of the barrel end. The plane would bite into the wood, creating a precise semicircular groove at a specific distance from the end of the stave. The challenge was to ensure that this groove was perfectly consistent in depth and distance from the end of each stave all the way around the barrel. An uneven crows would mean an uneven fit for the barrel head, leading to leaks. The cooper would work slowly, making repeated passes, carefully checking their progress. Some crows' planes even had adjustable guides to help maintain consistency. The skill required to execute a perfect crows was significant, as it was one of the last major cuts made to the staves before the final assembly, and an error at this stage could compromise the entire barrel. The crows served two primary functions. Firstly, it provided a stable, snug seat for the circular barrel head, preventing it from being pushed out by internal pressure or external impact. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, it allowed for the creation of a watertight seal. The edges of the barrel head would be slightly beveled, and often a layer of reeds, rushes, or flax would be placed within the crows before the head was hammered into place. This organic material, when compressed by the tight fit of the head, would swell with moisture and create an incredibly effective seal against leakage. The crows, therefore, was not merely a decorative element, but a deeply functional one, integral to the barrel's ability to perform its core task. Looking at a finished stave, It might seem like a simple piece-off wood, but closer inspection reveals a complex interplay of curves and angles, the subtle curve along its length, the concave inner surface, the convex outer surface, the tapering width from middle to end, and most importantly, the precisely angled and curved edges that allow it to mate perfectly with its neighbors. Each stave, though seemingly identical, was unique, a testament to the cooper's ability to read the grain of the wood and coax it into its desired form. The sheer repetition involved in crafting dozens of staves for a single barrel, and hundreds for a cooperage's annual output, fostered an incredible level of muscle memory and intuitive understanding. The time investment in the art of the stave alone was substantial. From felling and seasoning the timber, to the meticulous process of splitting, roughing, planing, jointing, and crozing, many hours, even days, would be dedicated to preparing the staves for a single high-quality barrel. This intensive labor, coupled with the specialized knowledge and tools required, meant that skilled coopers were highly valued members of medieval society. Their craft was essential to commerce, to food preservation, and to the very infrastructure of trade. The economic importance of barrels, and therefore of expertly crafted staves, cannot be overstated. They were the ubiquitous containers of the medieval world, holding everything from wine, ale, and spirits to salted fish, pickled vegetables, grain, oil, and even nails or gunpowder. Without them, large-scale transport and storage of goods would have been far more exciting, if not impossible. The art of the stave was not just about making a wooden container, it was about enabling trade, feeding populations, and preserving wealth. Thus, each stave, from its humble origin in the forestone, its final, precisely shaped form, represents a profound act of craftsmanship. It embodies a deep respect for natural materials, a sophisticated grasp of geometry, and a mastery of hand tools honed over generations. It is a work of functional art, a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. And once these meticulously crafted staves were ready, they would embark on the next phase of their transformation, the dramatic and painstaking process of assembly, where fire, water, and tension would bring them together into a complete watertight vessel. With each individual wooden plank meticulously prepared, split, planed, jointed, they were now poised to become something far greater, a unified vessel, capable of holding the very essence of medieval life. But before that final, watertight integrity could be achieved, certainly before any precious contents could be entrusted its care, the barrel would undergo another profound transformation, would be scraped and smoothed inside and out, a painstaking process that spoke volumes about the cooper's dedication to both function and form. Imagine, if you will, the scene in the cooper's workshop. The staves, now boasting their precise angles and bevels, held temporarily by a series of rough iron hoops, the barrel would begin to take its initial familiar shape. It would look like a slightly awkward, open-ended cage of wood, its staves still stubbornly straight in places, resisting the gentle curve that was their destiny. This is where the elements of fire and water briefly touched upon earlier truly came into play. The partially assembled barrel, often with one end tightly hooped and the other flared open, would be placed over a cresset of burning wood shavings or heated stones. This dramatic act of shaping was a spectacle in itself, a testament to the cooper's understanding of wood's inherent properties. Yet this process, while essential for forming the barrel, left the wood surfaces anything but refined. The internal surfaces would be scorched by the flames, roughened by the steam, and perhaps even splintered by the intense bending. And the inevitable imperfections that arise from such a powerful transformation. This is where the long, often meditative work of scraping and smoothing would begin. It was a critical stage, one that transformed a functional container into a work of endearing craftsmanship, a vessel both practical and pleasing to the eye. The first and perhaps most challenging aspect of this work involved the inside of the barrel. Consider the formidable task. Working within the confines of a curved, often dark, and recently charred interior. The rough, burnt wood, if left untreated, would be a detriment to anything stored within. It could impart an acrid flavor to wine or ale, harbor bacteria in its nooks and crannies, or even shed splinters into salted fish or pickled vegetables. For a cooper whose reputation rested on the integrity and purity of his barrel's contents, Such imperfections were simply unacceptable. The internal surface had to be immaculate, as smooth and clean as inside of a polished bowl. To achieve this, the cooper would turn to a specialized array of tools, each designed for the unique challenges of the barrel's interior. Foremost among these was the in-shave, somewhat a miscalled a scoop shave or a barrel scraper. This was a tool distinct in its form, a curved blade often resembling a small inverted gouge, fitted with a handle that allowed the cooper to reach deep into the barrel's belly. Imagine the cooper, perhaps seated on a low stool, the barrel tilted at an angle, its open head facing him, drawing it back towards his foo with a rhythmic scooping action, carrying with it the charred residue of the bending process. Rotating the barrel, his arms moving with a tireless rhythm, ensuring that no spot was missed. The challenge was not just to remove the rough material, but to do so evenly, maintaining the structural integrity of the staves without creating thin spots that could compromise the barrel's strength or lead to leaks. It required a delicate balance of pressure and control, a dance between force and finesse. A smaller hollowing knife or specialized inside scraper, often with a shorter, more acutely curved blade, might be used to smooth out any remaining irregularities or to reach into the tighter curves near the chime, the sloped, chamfered edge where the barrel head would eventually sit. These tools were often held with both hands, providing the necessary leverage and control for precise work within the confined space. The cooper's fingers, calloused and strong, would constantly be feeling the wood, assessing the texture, guiding the blade, and ensuring a uniform, unbroken surface. The air in the workshop would be thick with the sweet, sometimes slightly acrid scent of freshly cut wood, mingling with the faint aroma of char. As the work progressed, the interior of the barrel would slowly transform. The dark, uneven, almost primeval surface would give way to thepal, inviting grain of the clean wood beneath. It was a visual and tactile metamorphosis. Cooper might even occasionally run his hand along the developing surface, his fingertips discerning the slightest bump or hollow, guiding his next series of strokes. This was not a task to be rushed. Patience was paramount. Every imperfection removed, every splinter smoothed, contributed to the ultimate quality and longevity of the barrel, and by extension, to the quality of the goods it would contain. The importance of this internal smoothing cannot be overstated, especially when considering the medieval context. Without modern preservatives or refrigeration, the barrel was a fortress against spoilage. Rough interior, pockmarked with tiny crevices, offered countless hiding places for bacteria and molds to flourish. Imagine the souring of a fine vintage wine, the spoilage of a batch of ale, or the tainting of valuable salted provisions, all due to an inadequately prepared barrel. The economic consequences alone would be catastrophic, not to mention the damage to the cooper's reputation. Thus, the smooth, clean inner surface was a functional necessity, a silent guardian of the contents, ensuring that what went in pure came out pure. It was an act of preservation, both of the goods and of the medieval way of life. Once the internal surfaces were deemed pristine, the cooper's attention would turn to the exterior of the barrel. Having been fully formed, the staves tightly bound by their final dedirs. Permanent iron or wooden hoops, the barrel was now a robust, complete entity. But its outside, while sturdy, was still a rough-hewn canvas. The marks of the draw knife used for initial shaping, the scorch marks from the bending process, and the natural unevenness of hand-split timber would all still be present. Here, the goal was not just hygiene, but also aesthetics, durability, and practicality for handling and transport. A finished barrel, after all, was often a public display, a testament to the craftsman's skill and the value of its contents. For the external smoothing, the cooper would employ a different, though equally specialized set of tools. The draw knife would often be the first to come into play, particularly if there were significant amounts of excess wood to be removed, or if the barrel's bilge needed further shaping and refinement. Unlike the in-shave, the draw knife was a long, often lightly curved blade with a handle at each end, designed to be pulled towards the cooper with both hands. With the barrel secured on a stand or trestle, the cooper would lean into the work, the sharp blade biting into the wood, peeling way long, ribbon-like shavings. The rhythmic thunk and whoosh of the draw knife as it sculpted the barrel's form was another characteristic sound of the cooperage, a forceful yet controlled removal of material. This tool allowed for rapid stock removal and was crucial for achieving the graceful, symmetrical curve of the barrel's belly. Following the draw knife for more precise shaping and smoothing, the cooper would reach for the spoke shave. It's a ingenious tool, essentially a short-bladed plane with handles on either side. It was perfectly suited for working on curved surfaces. Its small size and two-handed grip offered exceptional control, allowing the cooper to remove fine shavings and refine the contours of thebro. With the spoke shave, the cooper would meticulously work around the bilge, along the chimes, and even around the hoops themselves, ensuring a smooth, flowing transition from one part of the barrel to another. He would rotate the barrel, always aiming for a seamless, uniform surface. The fine, almost transparent curls of wood produced by the spoke shave were a testament to its precision and the cooper-esque skill. For the flatter, or less acutely curved areas between the hoops, and especially for the barrel heads themselves, various types of planes would be brought into service. Long for plane or trying plane might be used for initial leveling, followed by a smoothing plane for the final glass-like finish. The cooper would use long, sweeping strokes, the plane's sole gliding over the wood, leaving behind a perfectly flat, lustrous surface. The sound of the plane was a steady, whispering shee, the shavings piling up in neat, fragrant coils around the cooper's feet. Each pass of the plane revealed the beauty of the wood, highlighting its grain and bringing a deeper lusterdo, its natural color. This was particularly important for the visible ends of the barrel, which often bore the cooper's mark or the insignia of the merchant. But even after planing, tiny marks, known as plane tracks, might remain. To remove these and achieve an even finer, almost silken finish, the cooper would turn to scrapers. These were typically thin, rectangular pieces of hardened steel, sharpened at an angle to create a fine burr. Held at a specific angle and pulled or pushed across the wood, the scraper would lift off microscopically thin shavings, leaving behind a surface that felt incredibly smooth to the touch, almost as if it had been polished. The sound of a scraper was a delicate, almost musical zzzzzzzzzzzt, a high-pitched whisper of steel on wood, producing a fine, dust-like powder rather than shavings. This final scraping step was where the barrel truly began to gleam, its surface reflecting light with a subtle sheen. And for the very last, most luxurious touch, some medieval coopers might have employed rudimentary abrasives, while not sandpaper as we know it today, coarse leaves from certain plants, dried horsetail rushes. A resin fine sand rubbed onto the surface with a piece of leather or wood could provide an exceptional polish. This final buffing would close the pores of the wood, enhancing its natural luster and creating a surface that was not only smooth but also more resistant to moisture and wear. It was the ultimate demonstration of pride in workmanship, transforming a robust container into a thing of tactile beauty. The entire external scraping and smoothing process was a testament to the cooper's patience and artistic eye. He had to ensure perfect symmetry, blending the curves of the bilge seamlessly into the flatter planes of the heads and chimes. He had to work around the unyielding iron hoops, smoothing the wood right up to their edges without damaging them or creating gunsetly gaps. Every inch of the barrel's exterior received the same meticulous attention, from the swell of its belly to the crisp lines of its chimes. The result was a barrel that was not only structurally sound and functionally superior, but also aesthetically pleasing, a genuine article of medieval design, crafted with an enduring elegance. Throughout both the internal and external finishing, the cooper's hands were his most vital tools. They guided the blades, felt the resistance of the wood, and constantly asked the evolving surface.
Oh.
They became extensions of his will, translating his vision of perfection into tangible reality. The rhythm of the work was hypnotic, a repetitive cycle of cutting, scraping, feeling, and inspecting. It was a physical exertion, undoubtedly, but also a meditative practice, a quiet dialogue between artisan and material. Each stroke, each pass of a tool, was a step closer to the ideal form, a slow revelation of the barrel's inherent beauty. This entire phase, the scraping and smoothing, was far from a trivial undertaking. It added significant hours, perhaps even days, to the production of a single barrel, especially for larger or finer vessels. It demanded specialized tools, profound skill, and unwavering dedication. Yet it was a non-negotiable step in the creation of a truly high-quality medieval barrel. It ensured the purity of the contents, protected the structural integrity of the vessel, and presented a product that commanded respect and trust. A well-scraped and smooth barrel was a mark of honor, symbol of the cooper's mastery, and a silent promise of the quality goods nestled within its carefully crafted embrace. And once this painstaking process was complete, once the wood inside was flawlessly clean and the exterior gleamed with its natural luster, the barrel would stand ready. It was no longer just a collection of staves, or a crude container, but a perfected vessel, ready to embark on its journey through the bustling markets and winding trade routes of the medieval world, a silent testament to the enduring power of human skill, patience, and a deep respect for the humble beauty of wood. It was an object of both profound utility and quiet artistry, ready to serve for decades, perhaps even centuries to come. Now, with the barrel's body expertly formed and smoothed, its individual staves perfectly planed and joined to create that elegant, bulging form, a critical stage remained. It was a stage that would transform this collection of carefully shaped wood into a truly resilient and functional vessel. The application of the hoops, without these binding rings, the barrel, for all its meticulous preparation, would remain little more than a fragile shell, incapable of holding its contents, or withstanding the rigors of transport and time. The hoops were the very sinews of the barrel, its external skeleton, providing the compressive strength necessary to hold the staves tightly together against the internal pressure of its eventual cargo, and against the bumps and stresses of a demanding world. Imagine, if you will, the gentle outward push of fermenting wine, or the sloshing weight of brine-cured fish, or even the subtle expansion and contraction of the wood itself with changes in humidity. These forces, over time, would pry apart even the most carefully fitted staves. The hoops were the counterforce, the unyielding embrace that ensured the barrel's integrity. They were the silent guardians of its contents, promising longevity and reliability. For these, the cooper would turn to the woods of the local forests, often preferring young, pliant growth such as hazel, willow, or sometimes even slender oak saplings. The qualities sought were flexibility and toughness, allowing the wood to be bent into a tight circle without snapping, yet possessing enough inherent strength to maintain its shape and provide the necessary compression. The process of preparing these wooden hoops was an art in itself, seeking out straight, unblemished lengths of young trees. Sometimes they were split lengthwise, creating two or more thinner, more manageable strips from a single piece. This splitting was done carefully, following the natural grain-off wood, ensuring maximum strength. Other times, for smaller hoops, a whole, round width might be used. Once split or selected, these lengths of wood needed to be made pliable. This usually involved soaking them in water to further increase their flexibility, much like a basket weaver prepares their reeds. This careful tempering prevented them from cracking as they were bent into the required tight circles. With the strips prepared, the cooper would then form them into hoops. This involved bending the softened wood around a circular form, or simply by hand and knee. The ends of the hoop would athon be joined, secured by binding them tightly with smaller, yet equally strong. The goal was to create a continuous, strong, and flexible band that would snugly encircle the barrel. Told its own story of the forest and the cooper's patient labor. But for barrels intended for particularly valuable goods, or those destined for rougher journeys and longer storage, iron hoops were the superior choice. These were the premium option, reserved for the finest wines, the most precious oils, or for those wealthy merchants who could afford the added expense. Iron, being far more durable and rigid than wood, offered unparalleled strength and a more secure, permanent binding. The creation of iron hoops fell to another master artisan, the blacksmith. The cooper would provide the precise measurements, flattened and curved the red-hot metal. Each hoop had to be perfectly circular, with its ends riveted together to form a seamless, unyielding band. One of the most remarkable aspects of applying iron hoops was the technique of shrinking on. The blacksmith, or sometimes the cooper with the blacksmith's assistance, would heat the finished iron hoop until it glowed red. At this temperature, the metal would expand ever so slightly. The hot hoop was then quickly placed over the barrel's staves, usually starting from the bottom, and rapidly cooled with water. As the iron cooled, it would contract, gripping the wood with immense force. pulling the staves even tighter together and creating an incredibly strong, virtually impenetrable seal. This method was a testament to the advanced understanding of material properties. The process of applying them to the barrel was a skilled performance in itself. After the staves had been raised and temporarily held in place by a few initial, often temporary, hoops, sometimes even simple rope, theme or permanent hoops were methodically driven into position. The cooper would begin by setting a hoop around one end of the partially assembled barrel, often starting with the bilge hoops, those that encircled the widest part of the barrel's belly. He would then take his cooper's driver, a specialized heavy mallet, usually made of dense wood like lignum vitae or elm, with a distinctive long, narrow head designed to strike the hoop without damaging the staves. This driver wasn't just a hammer, it was a finely balanced tool, its weight distributed to deliver precise, controlled force. Its long handle allowed for leverage, and its narrow face could be angled to apply pressure to the hoop's edge, driving it down evenly. Sometimes, small wooden wedges might be used temporarily to hold a hoop in place or to apply localized pressure, aiding the driver in its work. With a rhythmic, steady series of blows, he would tap the hoop downwards. Each tap was not merely a strike, but a calculated push, slowly inching the hoop into its precise location. The sound of this work was a defining characteristic of a cooper's shop, a deep, resonant asterisk thunk ... thunk ... as the mallet met the hoop, echoing through the workshop. It was a sound that spoke of strength, precision, and patient effort, a percussive underscore to the meticulous craft. As the hoop was driven, the staves would be drawn ever closer together, their joints tightening into an almost invisible seam, the subtle curves of the staves pressing against one another with increasing force. The cooper would constantly rotate the barrel, striking the hoop even around its circumference, ensuring uniform pressure. This wasn't a forceful, brutal act, but a controlled, almost gentle persuasion, coaxing the wood into its final, most secure embrace. The sequence of hoop application was also important. Generally, hoops were applied in pairs, one at each end, and then gradually moved inwards towards the bilge. This allowed for even compression and prevented any single section from being overstressed. Often, a few light temporary hoops might be used initially to hold the staves loosely in place, providing just enough structure to allow the primary stronger hoops to be driven home. These temporary hoops would then be removed once the permanent ones were securely in place. The careful choice and application of these hoops ensured that the barrel could withstand the considerable internal pressure it would experience when filled. Whether with a fermenting liquid or tightly packed goods, for barrels destined to hold liquids, the tightening of the hoops was absolutely critical for creating a watertight seal. The slight tapering of the staves and the internal bevels created during the chime and crows stages meant that as the hoops were driven down, they acted like a clamp, forcing the stave edges together with incredible pressure. This was where the cooper's skill truly shone, knowing precisely how much force to apply, how far to drive each hoop. Without damaging the wood or compromising the overall structure, it was a delicate balance between tightness and resilience. Too loose, and the barrel would leak. Too tight, and the wood could split or warp over time. This intuitive understanding, honed over years of practice, was the mark of a true master. One of the ongoing challengers for the cooper was the nature of wood itself. Wood is a living material, constantly reacting to its environment. Changes in humidity could cause staves to swell or shrink, potentially loosening hoops or even stressing the barrel's structure. A skilled cooper would anticipate this, allowing for a certain degree of give while ensuring fundamental tightness. For wooden hoops, there was always the risk of a hoop snapping if it was driven too hard, or if the wood had a hidden flaw. Placing a broken hoop meant carefully removing others, fitting a new one, and then painstakingly redriving them all. A frustrating setback, but a necessary one to maintain quality. Iron hoops, while stronger, also presented challenges. If not perfectly sized or applied, they could deform the staves, or in extreme cases, even burst a poorly constructed barrel. Once the main body hoops were in place and securely driven, the next crucial step involved preparing for and inserting the barrel heads. The ends off the barrel, known as the chimes, had already been carefully cut and beveled during the scraping and smoothing phase, creating a slight flare. Inside this chime, a precisely cut groove, known as the crow's, had been expertly incised by a specialized tool, the crow's iron. This crow's was a critical feature, as it would be the channel into which the circular barrel heads would fit, forming the final seal. The barrel heads themselves were often made from several pieces of wood, carefully joined together with tongue-and-groove joints or dowels, forming a single, sturdy circular disc. The edges of these discs were meticulously beveled to fit perfectly into the crow's groove, creating a snug, almost interlocking fit. The cooper would carefully insert one head, often requiring a bit of gentle persuasion with a wooden hammer or even a gloved hand, ensuring it sat flush and snug within its designated channel. This might involve carefully wiggling and tapping, listening for the satisfying thud that indicated a proper seating. Once the first head was in, a final set of hoops, known as head hoops or chime hoops, would be driven down over the chime, firmly securing the head in place and compressing the staves even further around it, creating the outermost boundary of the barrel. Then, the barrel would be turned, and the process repeated for the second head. This was often the more challenging part, as the barrel was now largely enclosed, making access more difficult. The cooper might have to temporarily loosen some body hoops, or use specialized tools, designed to maneuver the final head into its tight fit. It was a dance of strength and finesse, a complex puzzle requiring both patience and precision, ensuring that both ends were perfectly sealed and secure. After both heads were securely fitted and the final hoops driven tight, the barrel would be practically complete. This hole would then be sealed with a wooden bung, a tapered plug designed to create a tight, removable seal. The entire process of hooping and binding was a testament to the cooper's comprehensive understanding of wood, stress, and structural integrity. It wasn't just about putting rings on a barrel. It was about creating a dynamic system of compression that allowed the vessel to perform its function for years, even decades. The hoops, whether humble willow or sturdy iron, worked in concert with the staves, creating a living, breathing container that could expand and contract with environmental changes, yet always hold its form and its precious contents. This intricate interplay of forces was the very genius of barrel design, a testament to centuries of trial and error, of accumulated wisdom passed down from master to apprentice. A barrel was rarely considered truly finished until it had undergone a final rigorous inspection for leaks. This was the ultimate test of the cooper's craftsmanship. The most common method involved filling the barrel with water and then carefully rolling it, turning it, watching for any telltale drips, even the slightest seep from a stave joint or around the head. The cooper's keen eyes would scan every inch of the surface. Sometimes a more subtle test might be employed, such as introducing smoke or a strong-smelling herb into the sealed barrel to detect any escaping scent, particularly for barrels destined to hold fine wines or spirits where even a slight leak could compromise the product. If a leak was found, the cooper would carefully locate its source and, if possible, remedy it by further tightening a hoop, or even by inserting a small, precisely cut wooden peg or leak stopper into the affected joint. Final minute act of repair that ensured perfection. This was a critical quality control step, ensuring that the cooper's reputation and the economic value of the barrel remained unblemished. A leaky barrel wasn't it, only a waste of materials but a potential financial disaster for the merchant who purchased it. The number and placement of hoops varied significantly, a reflection of the barrel's size, its intended use, and the specific stresses it was expected to endure. A small ale barrel, destined for short transport and quick consumption, might have only a few wooden hoops, perhaps 4 or 6, strategically placed. In contrast, a massive wine butt or a sturdy herring barrel, destined for long sea voyages across rough waters, would boast numerous iron hoops, perhaps 8 or 10, or even more, strategically placed to withstand maximum stress and the constant jostling of maritime travel. The bilge hoops, those around the barrel's widest point, were often the most numerous and robust, as this was the area of greatest outward pressure from the contents and also the point, most susceptible to impact during handling and rolling. Quarter hoops provided additional strength between the bilge and the ends, while the chime hoops, as we've discussed, were crucial for securing the heads. Each hoop, in its specific position, played a vital role in the overall strength and longevity of the barrel. It was a symphony of engineering, a simple yet profound solution to the challenge of containing and transporting goods in an era without plastics or advanced metalworking techniques. The slow scraping and smoothing prepared the surfaces, but the hoops gave the barrel its enduring character, its ability to withstand the tests of time and travel. The cooper, standing back from his completed work, would surely feel a profound sense of accomplishment. The smooth, curved staves, now held in a firm, elegant embrace by their hoops, transformed the raw material into an object of both immense practical utility and understated beauty. The aroma of freshly worked wood still lingered in the air, perhaps mingled with the faint scent of water used to cool iron or the earthy notes of soaked willow. The workshop, once filled with the shriek of the adze and the rasp of the scraper, now resonated with the deeper, more deliberate thunk of the driver. Marking the final stages of creation, this completed barrel, a culmination of hours, even days of meticulous labor, was more than just a container. It was a testament to the cooper's skill, his patience, and his deep understanding of his materials. It was an object imbued with the very spirit of medieval craftsmanship, ready to embark on its journey, carrying not just goods but stories, traditions, and the quiet pride of its maker. Through the bustling, vibrant world of the Middle Ages, and perhaps far beyond, the work was demanding, often solitary. But in the creation of such a vital and enduring object, there was immense satisfaction. The resonant thunk of the driver, the hiss of the shrinking iron, the smell of wood and metal, these were the daily rhythms that brought the barrel, slowly but surely, to life, a testament to human ingenuity that would roll through history. The creation of a single barrel, as we've explored, was a journey from raw wood to finished vessel, a testament to skill and patience. But picture, if you will, not just one barrel, but a workshop where this meticulous craft unfolded day after day, year after year. Here, the unique sounds, sights, and sensations of cooperage weren't isolated events, but rather the very pulse of life itself, forming a profound and enduring rhythm of labor that shaped the medieval world. Imagine the workshop, perhaps still cool and quiet in the pre-dawn gloom, the scent of seasoned oak and pine, of iron and earth, hanging heavy in the air. As the first pale light of morning filtered through a high window, or perhaps by the flickering glow of a tallow lamp, the cooper's day would begin. This wasn't a sudden burst of activity, but a gradual awakening, much like the slow unfurling of the day itself. Fire would be stoked in the small forge, coaxing reluctant embers to life, casting dancing shadows on the timbered walls. The clatter of tools, carefully laid out the night before, would soon replace the silence, a prelude to the day's symphony. The rhythm of labor in a cooper's workshop was a deeply ingrained, almost primal cycle driven by the ceaseless demand for barrels. From the moment the adze first bit into a rough stave, to the final, resonant thunk of the drivers settling the last hoop, every action was part of a larger, evolving cadence. It was a dance between raw material and human will, a conversation between wood and iron, mediated by the skilled hands of the cooper. The work was physically demanding, undeniably, requiring immense strength and endurance. But it also called for a profound mental focus, a quiet dedication that transformed arduous tasks into a meditative practice. Consider the early hours, when the cooper might best selecting his staves, his keen eye assessing grain, detecting flaws, visualizing the curved form that lay dormant within each plank. The process of shaping these staves, the initial roughing out, would begin with the ringing strike of the adze, a tool that, in expert hands, could remove large quantities of wood with astonishing precision. The whack, the whack, the whack. The sound would echo a powerful statement of intent, clearing the morning air. Then would come the slower, more deliberate work of refining those curves. This wasn't a quick, perfunctory act. It was a long, patient engagement with the wood. The cooper, leaning into his work, would guide the scraper across the surface, feeling the subtle undulations, listening to the distinctive rasp as the tool met the wood. I bent of runcheon in town, I'm con to recentriate. I dines to one on an enchai, I'm in a one attacker to be a coddle on my mind. I'm a winter to win on my mind. I'm time sup ham to from mind of an I am we don't tell my why to try us say This was where the tactile intimacy with the material was at its peak. His fingers, calloused and strong, would constantly check the progress, feeling for any remaining roughness, any slight imperfection that could compromise the barrel's integrity. It was a process of refinement, of coaxing the wood to surrender its raw edges and reveal its inherent smoothness. This slow scraping wasn't merely about aesthetics, it was fundamentally practical. Smooth surface would make the staves fit together more tightly, reducing the risk of leaks and ensuring a better seal. It was a testament to the medieval understanding that true quality often emerged from patient, unhurried attention to detail. The scraping tools, often simple blades set in wooden handles, became extensions of the cooper's own hands, responding to the subtle pressures and angles he applied. Hours could be spent in this phase alone, bringing each stave to its optimal state, ready to become part of the greater whole. As the day progressed, the cacophony of the workshop would grow richer and more complex. The rhythmic clack-clack of a mallet-driven hoop down, the sizzle of a freshly heated iron band being quenched in a bucket of water, sending up plumes of steam and a faint metallic smell. These sounds would mingle with the consistent SSSHH of the scraper, creating a unique soundscape. It was a testament to the division of labor, even within a small cooperage, where an apprentice might be scraping staves while the master worked on fitting the hoops, or preparing the heads. Each sound announced a specific stage of the barrel-making process, a chapter in the daily narrative of creation. The very tools themselves seemed to hum with this rhythm, the cooper's adze, its sharp blade gleaming, seemed to sigh with each powerful stroke. The draw knife, a graceful curve of steel, whispered as it peeled away thin layers. And the cooper's mallet, heavy and worn smooth from countless impacts, thrummed with a deep, satisfying resonance. These weren't just implements. They were partners in the dance, instruments in the orchestra of the workshop. Their forms, honed by centuries of use, were perfectly adapted to the tasks they performed, allowing the cooper to work with maximum efficiency and minimal wasted motion. The sensory details were asmec, a part of the rhythm as the sounds. The pervasive scent of wood, of course, was always present. The sweet resinous aroma of pine, the robust earthy smell of oak, the temps of chestnut. But there were other, more fleeting scents that punctuated the day. The sharp, metallic temps of iron being worked, the acrid smoke from a fire used to char the inside of wine barrels, or the damp, refreshing smell of water used to soak staves in cool, heated hoops. These aromas weren't just background elements. They were integral cues, signaling different stages of the process, anchoring the cooper in his immediate, tangible reality, the feel of it all. The rough grain of raw timber beneath the palm, gradually yielding to the silky smoothness achieved through patient scraping. The cool, heavy weight of an iron hoop, then its warmth as it was heated, and the sudden, bracing chill as it was plunged into water. The vibration sieve, the mallet traveling up the arm, the subtle resistance of the wood against the scraper. The familiar shape of a tool handle molded by years of use. These tactile experiences forged an intimate bond between the cooper, his tools, and his material. His hands, often scarred and calloused, were his primary instruments of perception, capable of discerning nuances in the wood that others would overlook. This repetitive yet engaging nature of the work fostered a particular kind of mental state. Imagineth Cooper, lost in the focused concentration of shaping a stave. His thoughts might drift, but his hands would continue their practiced movements. guided by an ingrained muscle memory. There was a meditative quality to it, a rhythm that allowed the mind to settle, to engage deeply with the immediate task while simultaneously contemplating, perhaps the next barrel or simply the quiet passage of the day. It was a space where problems could be solved, where intuition could guide the hand, and where the craftsman could truly become one with his craft. The rhythm of labor extended beyond the individual cooper to the entire community of artisans. In larger workshops, or even in bustling market towns, the sounds of one cooper's shop might blend with those of the blacksmith's hammer, the weaver's loom, or the carpenter's saw. Each craft had its own distinct cadence, its own internal logic, but together they formed the vibrant, industrious hum of medieval life. The cooper, in his essential role, contributed significantly to this collective soundtrack, his efforts directly enabling the storage and transport of goods that sustained the very fabric of society. Apprenticeship was crucial to maintaining this rhythm across generations. Young boys, often beginning their training at an early age, would enter the workshop starting with the simplest tasks: sweeping floors, fetching water, perhaps eventually learning to clean and sharpen tools. Gradually, they would be initiated into the deeper mysteries of the craft. They would learn to read the wood, to understand the properties of different species, to master the feel of each tool. The master cooper, watching over them, would pass on not just techniques, but also the intangible wisdom that came from a lifetime spent with wood and iron. He would demonstrate the precise angle of an adze stroke, the subtle pressure needed for the scraper, the powerful yet controlled swing of the mallet. This transmission of knowledge, often quiet and observational, ensured that the rhythm of cooperage, the intricate dance of skill and material, would continue uninterrupted.
Seasonal variations also played a subtle role in the rhythm of the cooper's year. While barrels were needed year-round, the sourcing of wood might be seasonal, with trees felled in specific times to ensure the best timber. The seasoning of staves, often left to dry for months or even years outdoors, was a slow, natural process, a testament to nature's own unhurried pace. Perhaps there would periods of intense work leading up to harvest seasons. The demand for wine barrels, ale casks, or fish barrels increasing dramatically. Then, perhaps, a slightly slower period in the depths of winter, allowing for maintenance, repair, and the careful preparation of materials for the coming spring. The cooper's rhythm, then, was not entirely, but also subtly attuned to the broader cycles of agriculture and the natural world. The image of the cooper, covered in sawdust, his brow furrowed in concentration, yet his movements fluid and practiced, is a powerful one. He was a craftsman, certainly, but also a kind of custodian of a vital technology. His work, the slow scraping and shaping, the careful binding with hoops, ensured that the bounty of the land and sea could be preserved, transported, and shared. Without his tireless efforts, the flow of goods would grind to a halt, limiting trade and hindering the development of medieval towns and cities. Each completed barrel rolling out of the workshop carried not just its contents, but the echoes of this labor. It held the memory of the adze's strike, the scraper's rasp, the mallet's thunk. It embodied the patient hours, the meticulous care, and the profound skill of its maker. This wasn't merely factory production. It was a deeply personal creation, a tangible link between human effort and human need. The volume of barrels required across Europe meant that countless coopers maintained this essential rhythm, their workshops becoming vital hubs of industry, each one contributing to the complex, interconnected web of medieval life. And so, the rhythm of labor in the cooper's workshop was more than just the sum of its parts. It was a philosophy, a way of life, a testament to the enduring power of human ingenuity and dedication. It was a rhythm of creation, of transformation, of sustenance. And as each barrel rolled out, filled with its precious cargo, it carried with it not just the physical manifestation of this labor, but also the invisible, enduring spirit of the medieval craftsman. A spirit that continues to resonate through history, reminding us of profound value of work done with purpose, patience, and skill. The silent, almost spiritual communication between man and wood, shaped by the steady cadence of the workshop, truly brought medieval barrels slowly but surely, to life. And so, as we allow the lingering scent of sawdust and aged wood to gently fade, and the echo of the Koopa's mallet to soften in our minds, we arrive at the quiet culmination of our journey. We have traversed the humble yet profound world of the medieval barrel, a world born from the painstaking dedication of hands that understood both the whisper and the resistance of timber. We have seen how each stave, each hoop, each meticulous scrape and polish contributed not merely to a container, but to the very lifeblood of a civilization. The barrel, in its silent strength, was a testament to ingenuity. A seemingly simple object that held within its curved embrace the complex narratives of trade, sustenance, and daily existence. It was the silent partner to the merchant, the faithful guardian of the harvest, the stalwart vessel for the brewer's art. Imagine the bustling docksides, the creaking wagons, the cool, dark cellars. In every scene, the barrel played a crucial, often unsung role. Without its robust form, the delicate balance of medieval economies the preservation of vital goods would have been impossible, and the movement of culture and commerce across vast distances would have been severely curtailed. It was, in essence, a foundational technology, one that shaped landscapes and livelihoods in ways we rarely pause to consider. These weren't just wooden cylinders. They were vessels of story. Each seam held the memoriaf, the forests where the oak grew, the sweat of the cooper who coaxed its form, and the journey of its contents. Whether it be the richness of wine, the tang of salted fish, or the golden bounty of grain, they were crafted to endure, to protect, to transport, and in doing so, they became interwoven with the fabric of human survival and prosperity. Their ubiquity in the medieval world speaks volumes about their efficacy and the relentless, skilled labor that brought them into being. Even today, though the age of mass-produced containers has long since arrived, there remains a deep, almost instinctual reverence for the Koopa's craft. We see it in the revival of artisanal traditions, in the appreciation for objects made with purpose and patience, where the hand of the maker is evident in every curve and joint. The skills passed down through generations, the intimate knowledge of wood, the understanding of its temper and its strengths. These are legacies that continue to inspire, remind us of a time when the connection between creation and utility was immediate and profound.
The medieval barrel, therefore, stands as more than just a historical artifact. It is a symbol of human perseverance, of the quiet dignity of labor, and of the enduring power of craftsmanship. It reminds us that often, the most transformative innovations are not always the most complex, but rather those that fulfill a fundamental need with elegant simplicity and robust execution. As we look at these ancient containers, whether in museums or through the lens of history, we are not just seeing wood and iron. We are glimpsing the very essence of an era, feeling the echoes of countless hands, and recognizing the artistry that elevated a common object into an indispensable pillar of civilization. Let us carry with us, then, not just the image of the cooper's workshop, but the philosophy it embodied, that true value is often found in the deliberate, the dedicated, and the deeply human act of creation. The slow scraping of medieval barrels, a practice lost to the mists of time for many, was a powerful silent force that shaped the world. And in its quiet resilience, it continues to whisper its tales to those willing to listen, inviting us to appreciate the profound beauty and lasting impact of humble work, done with purpose, patience, and unparalleled skill. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the forgotten craft that held the medieval world together. And so, as the day gently yields to the twilight, imagine our cooper, his work tools laid carefully aside, the soft scent of freshly planed wood lingering in the air. His hands, though worn, remain steady, testament to a lifetime of purpose and precision. He stands amidst his creations, each barrel a silent monument to countless hours of focused effort, of slow scraping, patient fitting, and the rhythmic beat of hammer on hoop. The quiet resilience of this labor, the steadfast dedication to a craft that built and sustained civilizations, resonates through the centuries, whispers to us of a forgotten rhythm, a time when progress was measured not in speed, but in the unwavering quality of each deliberate stroke. Monotonous scrape of wood, far from being a burden, became a meditative hum, a continuous thread weaving together the fabric of daily life. Let us carry this image with us. The cooper silhouetted against the fading light, his work a symphony of quiet diligence. It reminds us that there is profound beauty and deep satisfaction in simple, necessary tasks performed with unwavering dedication. In the gentle creak of a well-made barrel, in the smooth curve of its staves, we find an enduring testament to human ingenuity and the quiet power of hands that with patience and skill shape the world, one piece of wood at a time. This legacy of thoughtful creation, of bringing essential beauty into being, continues to hold lessons for us all, inviting us to find tranquility in the steady, purposeful work that binds past to present. Thank you for journeying with us into the quiet corners of history. If you've enjoyed this tranquil tale, please consider subscribing to Whisper Vale for more stories designed to relax and inspire. You might also enjoy another one of our narratives, perhaps about the forgotten art of medieval candle making, linked here for you. Till next time, may your days be filled with peace and curious wonder.